2 Kings chapter 4. Now a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha, saying, Your servant my husband is dead. You know that your servant feared Yahweh. Now the creditor has come to take for himself my 2 children to be slaves. Elisha said to her, What should I do for you? Tell me, what do you have in the house? She said, Your servant has nothing in the house except a pot of oil. Then he said, Go, borrow empty containers from all your neighbors. Don't borrow just a few containers. Go in and shut the door on you and on your sons, and pour oil into all those containers, and set aside those which are full. So she went from him, and shut the door on herself and on her sons. They brought the containers to her, and she poured oil. When the containers were full, she said to her son, Bring me another container. He said to her, There isn't another container. Then the oil stopped flowing. Then she came and told the man of God. He said, Go, sell the oil, and pay your debt, and you and your sons live on the rest. One day Elisha went to Shunem, where there was a prominent woman, and she persuaded him to eat bread. So it was that as often as he passed by, he turned in there to eat bread. She said to her husband, See now, I perceive that this is a holy man of God who passes by us continually. Please, let's make a little room on the roof. Let's set a bed, a table, a chair, and a lampstand for him there. When he comes to us, he can stay there. One day he came there, and he went to the room and lay there. He said to Gehazi his servant, Call this Shunammite. When he had called her, she stood before him. He said to him, Say now to her, Behold, you have cared for us with all this care. What is to be done for you? Would you like to be spoken for to the king or to the captain of the army? She answered, I dwell among my own people. He said, What then is to be done for her? Gehazi answered, Most certainly she has no son, and her husband is old. He said, Call her. When he had called her, she stood in the door. He said, At this season next year you will embrace a son. She said, No, my lord, you man of God, do not lie to your servant. The woman conceived and bore a son at that season when the time came around, as Elisha had said to her. When the child was grown, one day he went out to his father to the reapers. He said to his father, My head, my head. He said to his servant, Carry him to his mother. When he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knees until noon, and then died. She went up and laid him on the man of God's bed, and shut the door on him, and went out. She called to her husband and said, Please send me one of the servants and one of the donkeys, that I may run to the man of God and come again. He said, Why would you want to go to him today? It is not a new moon or a Sabbath. She said, It's all right. And she saddled the donkey and said to her servant, Drive and go forward. Don't slow down for me unless I ask you to. So she went and came to the man of God to Mount Carmel. When the man of God saw her afar off, he said to Gehazi his servant, Behold, there is the Shunammite. Please run now to meet her and ask her, Is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with your child? She answered, It is well. When she came to the man of God to the hill, she caught hold of his feet. Gehazi came near to thrust her away, but the man of God said, Leave her alone, for her soul is troubled within her, and Yahweh has hidden it from me, and has not told me. Then she said, Did I ask you for a son, my lord? Didn't I say, Do not deceive me? Then he said to Gehazi, Tuck your cloak into your belt, take my staff in your hand, and go your way. If you meet any man, don't greet him, and if anyone greets you, don't answer him again. Then lay my staff on the child's face. The child's mother said, As Yahweh lives, and as your soul lives, I will not leave you. So he arose and followed her. Gehazi went ahead of them and laid the staff on the child's face, but there was no voice and no hearing. Therefore he returned to meet him and told him, The child has not awakened. When Elisha had come into the house, behold, the child was dead and lying on his bed. He went in therefore and shut the door on them both and prayed to Yahweh. He went up and lay on the child, and put his mouth on his mouth, and his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands. He stretched himself on him, and the child's flesh grew warm. Then he returned and walked in the house once back and forth, then went up and stretched himself out on him. Then the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. He called Gehazi and said, Call this Shunammite. So he called her. When she had come into him, he said, Take up your son. Then she went in, fell at his feet, and bowed herself to the ground. Then she picked up her son and went out. Elisha came again to Gilgal. Here was a famine in the land, and the sons of the prophets were sitting before him. And he said to his servant, Get the large pot, and boil stew for the sons of the prophets. One went out into the field to gather herbs, and found a wild vine, and gathered a lap full of wild gourds from it, and came and cut them up into the pot of stew, for they didn't recognize them. So they poured out for the men to eat. As they were eating some of the stew, they cried out and said, Man of God, there is death in the pot, and they could not eat it. He said, Then bring meal. He threw it into the pot, and he said, Serve it to the people, that they may eat. And there was nothing harmful in the pot. A man from Baal Shalisha came, and brought the man of God some bread of the first fruits, 20 loaves of barley, and fresh ears of grain in his sack. Elisha said, Give to the people, that they may eat. His servant said, What, should I set this before 100 men? He said, give it to the people, that they may eat, for Yahweh says, they will eat, and will have some left over. So he set it before them, and they ate, and had some left over, according to Yahweh's word. 2 Kings, chapter 5. Now Naaman, captain of the army of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master, and honorable, because by him Yahweh had given victory to Syria. He was also a mighty man of valor, but he was a leper. The Syrians had gone out in bands, and had brought away captive out of the land of Israel a little girl, and she waited on Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, I wish that my lord were with the prophet who is in Samaria. Then he would heal him of his leprosy. Someone went in and told his lord, saying, the girl who is from the land of Israel said this. The king of Syria said, go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel. He departed and took with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 pieces of gold, and 10 changes of clothing. He brought the letter to the king of Israel, saying, now when this letter has come to you, behold, I have sent Naaman my servant to you, that you may heal him of his leprosy. When the king of Israel had read the letter, he tore his clothes and said, my God, to kill and to make alive, that this man sends to me to heal a man of his leprosy, that please consider and see how he seeks a quarrel against me. It was so, when Elisha the man of God heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, why have you torn your clothes? Let him come now to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses and with his chariots, and stood at the door of the house of Elisha. Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall come again to you, and you shall be clean. That Naaman was angry, and went away and said, behold, I thought, he will surely come out to me, and stand, and call on the name of Yahweh his God, and wave his hand over the place, and heal the leper. Are the Ban and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Couldn't I wash in them and be clean? So he turned and went away in a rage. His servants came near and spoke to him, and said, my father, if the prophet had asked you to do some great thing, wouldn't you have done it? How much rather then, when he says to you, wash and be clean? Then went he down and dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God. And his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. He returned to the man of God, he and all his company, and came and stood before him. And he said, see now, I know that there is no God in all the earth, but in Israel. Now therefore, please take a gift from your servant. That he said, as Yahweh lives, before whom I stand, I will receive none. They urged him to take it, but he refused. Naaman said, if not, then please let 2 mules load of earth be given to your servant, for your servant will from now on offer neither burnt offering nor sacrifice to other gods, but to Yahweh. In this thing may Yahweh pardon your servant, when my master goes into the house of Rimmon to worship there, and he leans on my hand, and I bow myself in the house of Rimmon. When I bow myself in the house of Rimmon, may Yahweh pardon your servant in this thing. He said to him, go in peace. So he departed from him a little way. But Gehazi, the servant of Elisha the man of God, said, behold, my master has spared this Naaman the Syrian, and not receiving at his hands that which he brought. As Yahweh lives, I will run after him, and take something from him. So Gehazi followed after Naaman. When Naaman saw one running after him, he came down from the chariot to meet him, and said, is all well? He said, all is well. My master has sent me, saying, behold, even now 2 young men of the sons of the prophets have come to me from the hill country of Ephraim. Please give them a talent of silver and 2 changes of clothing. Naaman said, be pleased to take 2 talents. He urged him, and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags with 2 changes of clothing, and laid them on 2 of his servants, and they carried them before him. When he came to the hill, he took them from their hand, and stored them in the house. Then he let the men go, and they departed. Then he went in, and stood before his master. Elisha said to him, where did you come from, Gehazi? He said, your servant went nowhere. He said to him, didn't my heart go with you when the man turned from his chariot to meet you? Is it a time to receive money, and to receive garments, and olive groves, and vineyards, and sheep and cattle, and male servants and female servants? Therefore the leprosy of Naaman will cling to you and to your offspring forever. He went out from his presence a leper, as white as snow. 2 Kings, chapter 6. The sons of the prophets said to Elisha, see now, the place where we live and meet with you is too small for us. Please let us go to the Jordan, and each man take a beam from there, and let's make us a place there where we may live. He answered, go. One said, please be pleased to go with your servants. He answered, I will go. So he went with them. When they came to the Jordan, they cut down wood. That as one was cutting down a tree, the axe head fell into the water. Then he cried out and said, alas, my master, for it was borrowed. The man of God asked, where did it fall? He showed him the place. He cut down a stick, threw it in there, and made the iron float. He said, take it. So he put out his hand and took it. Now the king of Syria was at war against Israel, and he took counsel with his servants, saying, my camp will be in such and such a place. The man of God sent to the king of Israel, saying, beware that you not pass this place, for the Syrians are coming down there. The king of Israel sent to the place which the man of God told him and warned him of, and he saved himself there, not once or twice. The king of Syria's heart was very troubled about this. He called his servants and said to them, "Won't you show me which of us is for the king of Israel?" One of his servants said, "No, my lord, O king, but Elisha, the prophet who is in Israel, tells the king of Israel the words that you speak in your bedroom." He said, "Go and see where he is, that I may send and get him." He was told, "Behold, he is in Dathan." Therefore he sent horses, chariots, and a great army there. They came by night and surrounded the city. When the servant of the man of God had risen early and gone out, behold, an army with horses and chariots was around the city. His servant said to him, "Alas, my master, what shall we do?" He answered, "Don't be afraid, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them." Elisha prayed and said, "Yahweh, please open his eyes, that he may see." Yahweh opened the young man's eyes, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire around Elisha. When they came down to him, Elisha prayed to Yahweh and said, "Please strike this people with blindness." He struck them with blindness according to Elisha's word. Elisha said to them, "This is not the way, neither is this the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom you seek." He led them to Samaria. When they had come into Samaria, Elisha said, "Yahweh, open these men's eyes, that they may see." Yahweh opened their eyes, and they saw, and behold, they were in the middle of Samaria. The king of Israel said to Elisha when he saw them, "My father, shall I strike them? Shall I strike them?" He answered, "You shall not strike them, but you strike those whom you have taken captive with your sword and with your bow. Set bread and water before them, that they may eat and drink, then go to their master." He prepared a great feast for them. After they ate and drank, he sent them away, and they went to their master. So the bands of Syria stopped raiding the land of Israel. After this, Ben-Hadad king of Syria gathered all his army, and went up and besieged Samaria. There was a great famine in Samaria. Behold, they besieged it until a donkey's head was sold for 80 pieces of silver, and the fourth part of a calf of dove's dung for 5 pieces of silver. As the king of Israel was passing by on the wall, a woman cried to him, saying, "Help, my lord, O king." He said, "If Yahweh doesn't help you, where could I get help for you? From the threshing floor or from the winepress?" Then the king asked her, "What is your problem?" She answered, "This woman said to me, 'Give your son, that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow.' So we boiled my son and ate him. And I said to her on the next day, 'Give up your son, that we may eat him.' And she has hidden her son." When the king heard the words of the woman, he tore his clothes. Now he was passing by on the wall, and the people looked, and behold, he had sackcloth underneath on his body. Then he said, "God do so to me, and more also, if the head of Elisha the son of Shaphat stays on him today." But Elisha was sitting in his house, and the elders were sitting with him. Then the king sent a man from before him, but before the messenger came to him, he said to the elders, "Do you see how this son of a murderer has sent to take away my head? Behold, when the messenger comes, shut the door, and hold the door shut against him. Isn't the sound of his master's feet behind him?" While he was still talking with them, behold, the messenger came down to him. Then he said, "Behold, this evil is from Yahweh. Why should I wait for Yahweh any longer?"